will shortly be arriving at Hyington.
Yeah, that must have been it. But yeah, so now I get the train.
My name is Margaret Taylor. My maiden name was Watson, and I was born in the next street over in the bungalow. My grandfather worked on the railways, and his son, my uncle, he also worked at North Road shops with the engines. And I've travelled on the railways all my life, you know.
Because I don't live far from the railway line, I've got more kind of connection with the space, with that area of land, and I just feel like it's sort of part of, my family and how I've grown up. And so, yes, I think it is important, yeah.
After my father died, he was only 41 when he died, and my mother and I moved sort of round opposite, round the corner, as to say, and we lived with my grandparents. We all moved in together. I had worked for 11 years at Binns. I was looking for something different. I could see if I didn't leave there, I would spend my whole life working there, and I wouldn't meet anybody, I wouldn't have been married, I don't think.
I am rolling.
The stories are the things that connect us, so like it's the human encounters. Even when we've been talking, it's the same curiosities we have, or the same interests are there, aren't they, in how we process the world and understand it.
I was born in the footsteps of a railway family. My grandma was a station clerk till 1963.
I think it was advertised in the paper, and my grandfather saw it, and he said, he told me about it. He said, you want to apply for it because they're good jobs on the railway, well paid, and there was more money than I was getting at Binns. And I needed, more money to help my mother, a widow. So I applied for it, got the job, and then they sent me to Hyington. Chap came in one day, I think it was on a Saturday when everybody had gone, and he wanted to send this goat to Wales. And I'd never sent any livestock at all, and I didn't quite know what to do. So I looked it up and I had to wait. You charge by weight apparently, so we had a big, weighing scales outside on the platform, and managed to get this goat onto the scales. Tied a label round its neck, and we put it on the train, and I don't know if it got there or not.
Sometimes I've heard people talking about writing a song a little bit like creating a piece of artwork or a carving. It's actually about chipping away at the elephant or whatever it might be underneath the carving. And so actually it's what you don't say that lets the little bit you say breathe. And so it might just be one particular story within this that speaks to all those aspects. It's really difficult sometimes to find what the story is, and too much information or too much story loses the audience. You've got to find something, some way of drawing in.
Well, one morning I went into work at early shift to, I went into the office, and there was this strange man doing the job that I'd gone to do. And it was, I called him Boris, and he'd taken the job for the summer. He'd come off the relief job, and he was at Hyington for the whole summer. For settling, he came from Whitley Weir, up Weardale. And so I didn't really speak to him. I just went through him into the office and sat down and wondered what was happening. Because I hadn't had any warning that somebody was coming, you know. And he was a quiet man as well, wasn't he, David? Yes, yes. Somebody said to him, when are you going to ask Margaret out? And he sort of, he was a bit embarrassed and I was a bit embarrassed. So everybody went out of the office and left us alone, apart from one person. And he asked me to go out with him and I said yes. And so we went to I think we went to the cinema. And we went on from there, yeah. We were married February '63. There's snow on the ground. No, it wasn't like brief encounter at all.
It's one of those things that you don't really think about asking, do you, till maybe 10 years ago or something? I remember being aware that, you know, that Grandma had worked on the railways and things like that. It's alright to have a family tree, isn't it? But it's nice to know a few stories about people.
He's always asking me questions about,
yeah.
you know, what I did when I was young. And
Yes, yeah.
yes. I often wish that I'd asked my grandparents more questions. You know, there's things I would like to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was born in the footsteps of a railway family. My grandma was a station clerk till 1963. Her father was a joiner and she married a station man. I grew up with the stories of where it all began. And Grandma, she's in her 90s now, and she recalls with ease working for the railways in the twilight years of steam. The station was a busy place, seeing parcels on their way. Whenever we'd sit and natter, I'd always hear her say that you can still see the sleepers and the stones of the platform from the very first station on the very first line. If the stones could tell stories, I wonder what they'd say. The life they would capture of a sacred railway. Tell us another story like the one about the goat that turned up at the office, ready to be post. The time you let the train slip out of your sight, and you head over the crossing and you had quite a fright. The firemen and the guards would often hang around, for the station has its fame, for it's known around this town that you can still see the sleepers and the stones of the platform from the very first station on the very first line. You can plot it on a family tree and write biographies, but nothing comes as close as listening to you speak. as winter soon approached, she feared another freeze, for the year before was frightening, with ice upon the trees. Not long after she quit, the station closed for good. Beaching and the cuts I've never understood, and I still use the line every day I go to work. And when we call by Hyington, I smile as I recall that you can still see the sleepers and the stones off the platform from the very first station on the very first line. And though it feels forgotten and its relevance ignored, can tell you that its legacy will one day be restored. And you can still see the sleepers and the stones of the platform from the very first station on the very first public passenger railway line.